Hey trendsetters, this week we have more of a rocky song. It's an old program song from the Flashdance movie Maniac, and it's one of my favourite sort of, tracks that bring back old memories when I was a kid, a teenager growing up on the Sunshine Coast. And these movies, Fame and Flashdance and everything, all about music, and I was playing synthesizers and stuff back then, and this song was very programmed in its day, so like a lot of the 80s tunes. So all of the drums, the percussion, lots of synths, and our approach was to use Danny LaPresto as the rock singer and sort of really punch it, and with live drums and percussion, of course, sort of gave it a whole new life. So let's mix it. Let's see how she goes. So I'll make sure that I'll put the link to the final mix in the description as well if you haven't already seen it. You might have already seen the track and come back here and having a look at the mix. So, okay, let's get into it. Let's listen to the raw tracks. I've got the video up here as well, so we can always have a look at the final camera cut as we're going. I'm going to straight away put a babysitter on my master because it's already overdriven. I'm going to drop that back down a couple because I always put an EQ, an Infinity EQ, which is the Slate Infinity, comes with the all-you-can-eat Slate monthly subscription. I love this EQ, especially with my touchscreen with my Raven. It's really a fantastic EQ, and it works so well. But I also put a Slate Virtual Mix Rack VMR. Oops, Slate Digital Virtual Mix Rack. And always put that here because on my master track, because instead of pulling everything back, I mean, you still need to pull everything back a fair bit, but your master always takes a bit of a heck of a beating. So I prefer to have a master channel setting where I can pull the trimmers, the input gain to the master channel, pull it back, 6 dB, so it relieves the pressure. Logic's pretty forgiving with a hot master, but I get these tracks mastered, so I prefer to have that 3 to 6 dB dynamic range anyway at the end, so to give me the best master mix. So in this particular thing, I'm going to have a trimmer that pulls back the master. I'm going to change the channel to a bus. So I'm going to go to the mix bus, like it's a bus compression on a desk. I'm going to put that on the British because I just like that sound. Instead of using a knee style EQ, this is a rock song, I would prefer to use the SSL style. So I'm going to use that one. That gives me the right sort of nose and edge for the barky, really grunty rock sort of approach. The custom series equalizer is going to just be my general bit of air, my cutoffs top and bottom as well, anything like that. So I don't use that too much on the master, but very, very handy EQ. Then the different types of compressor that you use here is also important. I might swap that one out later, but let's have a listen to it first. I've got Air and Earth, which are my favorite two straight out. The things that you're really looking for in a master mix is Earth, all the midtones, that's the glue inside the mix, and the Air, the sparkle on top. And the trimmer at the end to make sure that you're not going too far. So let's just leave them fairly well 12 o'clock. And let's hear the mix now as it is, flat and raw. I'm going to start just panning things around a little because we've got overhead left and right, so we're going to make sure that they're left and right. And I'm going to group them. So groups, we've had some put that in the overs group. Percussion, these guys here are doing totally two different things. I'll just pan them a little bit. Bass is in the middle. Guitar is a little, it's over to the left. Might just slightly left. My keyboards are left and right. And we'll group those suckers too. Keyboard 1. We've got a bell synth, the old FM bell sort of synth. You'll get to hear that in a second. So let's call it keyboard 2. And these guys here, synth, your main synth, ARP synth. Okay, Danny's the singer, Danny Lopresto. Myself doing some BVs, so I'm on the left. Brad is the drummer, he's doing the other BVs that come in later. I'll put him to the right, just a little. So I think everything's panned fairly well. Our rack tom is that side on the video and floors that way, so all right, that will probably sound a little better. I'm going to adjust some of the levels first just to get things a little bit, matched as far as levels go. I know I'm not individually EQing or anything yet, so just to let the track go. I've just heard the percussion over on the right hand side, so these are obviously the wrong way around. So I'm going to pull them, just swap them over. Because, according to the video, percussion is on the left of the drums. And I'm using an XY pattern on this one. I like the XY, it gives me a nice little stereotype, but I don't like, the camera guys don't like it because it's, creates this devil horns on the drummer when they're trying to keep him, in shot. The drummers don't like, pictures of them with the XY in front of them, and that happens a lot in the studio here as well. But to me, that's the sound I really like. That's really... Anyway, so let's get back to let's just start with drums now that I've got a basic. Let's just, I'm going to just select the kit and press solo and just listen to it by itself. I also noticed visually that one of these overheads are a little louder than the other. So the only way, I think the best way for me to fix that is probably just to go to a utility gain mono and just push one up a touch. Now the way you can, you can see here in these two little things on the hits, I want to try and get them about the same. Pretty close. All right, just a little tiny bit. I just like the snare to be popping in the middle and not uneven on the other side. So kick is sounding pretty good. Still got a lot of that, the spill. I'm gonna do what I do. Yep, I'm gonna trigger it. So because it'll take, and Plus, if I just make sure that I push the gain over here, so I've just selected the, if I push the gain up and down, see that? Then I'll make sure that the trigger hits a fairly, hits the sample hard as well. Gotta make sure I get those little ones. Okay, so that has an R bass on it to 63 Hertz. It's pushing pretty heavy. Yeah, I'll leave it there. And an L2, you know, like 6 dB smash as well. So I'm really limiting, I'm adding another 6 dB. I'm hitting this really hard. So it's very, now this is really just consistent. I just want all those kicks to be exactly the same really. You know, I want them fairly well consistent. So all the way through, none of the energy dissipates from the kick. The snare too, I really feel the same, you know. So you can see there's dynamics in that snare, right? So the way Brad's a very, very good player and is very famous in South Australia for being currently in the band The Zep Boys, which is one of the very best Led Zeppelin experiences that you'll ever hear. And to do John Bonham style drumming takes, you know, quite a feat. These guys have toured through the UK as well. And just a fantastic drummer. Con, our bass player, is also in the Zep Boys right now as well. So you can imagine the level of players that we've got here. You know, this is not your average garage band, right? These guys are really way up there at the top of their field. So let's have a listen to his snare. Now I'm pretty sure that these microphones on this particular setup are Sennheiser, an E904, I think, the ones that are on the drum mounts. It just sounds very similar to even a 57. It's probably a little brighter, which is probably good. Let's get our EQ out. Now, particularly, there is still going to be some ring in the snare anyway through the overheads and the other mics, but there are just some really close up because I want to slam this snare hard. I want it to be loud, and it's single dimensional right now. I want it to have a little bit of space. It's just one microphone. I want to make this one snare track really crank and sound like something really special. So, you know, the drums have to be slammed hard. So I'm going to hear all these little tiny things. That's why I take out harmonics a little. I try and take those little bits like... I can hear the frequency. Let's just... that one there. Now, of course, there's do. I mean, the EQ's giving it to me anyway, right? It's showing me by these little peaks. I don't want to lose it all, just don't want it to be the feature. And I do wish that this snare had a lot more body down the bottom end here, right? So, you know, this frequency here, you know, around the 100 Hertz or so. Now, adding it here is not really going to give me what I want. Plus, it's going to push this 200 hump that you normally get on a snare, which I like, but, you know, what I prefer to do in that instance is to use a, you know, especially Logic has a great one here in Specialized sub bass. This is just like an R bass. I like the sound of this one on a snare. So let's just so our frequency, we want it down to around the 100 Hertz. We want to just, we're talking about now what you're hearing now is just what I'm adding. Now let's just put the EQ after that sub bass and see what's happening. So notice this new hump here. It's leaving a little bit of a chasm in this frequency range, so let's just move it around a bit. I mean, that's way overdone, but I really like the way that that has kicked. So I just push the wet back and I have my old snare, so I just add whatever I need. That's great. I'm going to definitely put a bit of highs. Okay, before I put a reverb on it and give it space, I'm going to slam it hard. So, you know, my favorite L2 or, you know, straight out limiter. Then I'm just going to go straight into the reverb, space designer, mono to stereo. So I'm going to turn a mono thing into a stereo instrument, and I'm going to go into the small spaces, rooms, and I'm going to start at the very, very smallest space that Logic gives you. Just close down the EQ. Now that we're going to listen to a reverb, the smallest reverb, you know, like a space, a room the size of a helmet, that are, you know, gradually getting bigger. And of course, reverbs add tone, so it's going to change the tone of the snare. I'm going to flick through a few of these just by using the up arrow and listen to it until I find something that I like. Now this is the one I'm sort of after. It's short, wide, doesn't add too much of a ping. And gives it space, makes it three-dimensional. Then I can add my normal straight out reverb, which I can just bust through, you know, bust one, put a reverb in here, let's say a chroma verb. This is a Logic reverb as well, dirty chamber. I normally just pull back some of the mids, so let's hit, you know, some of the center here. Pull a bit of that out. Okay, there's our snare done. Racks. Now these two probably have the same mics as well, the E904. This doesn't look like a lot of toms. One here and one near the end. So in this instant, because there's not many toms, you know, I'll just chop them out. So this is my normal chopping technique, chef talk. M for mute. And I just have my cutting tool using my control so I can slip really fast, and then just press M to unmute, go to the next transient, press M again. And there's one near the end of the song. Press M, press M. And all it takes then is really to put the fade in, fade outs on all of those. So it's just select the track and go over here and just go in, out. And all of the, you know, all of the objects have an in and out. Fade, applied. So, all right, let's go for... Beautiful. Oops, start with muted. On. This last one is a black flam on the snare, so off. Ones in the middle here. Now remember, I can use reverb to make these tail off long. So, you know, don't worry about chopping them a little short, because I'll put some reverb on them, slam them hard, and these tracks here will have no bleed because I'm slicing them. A lot of the other tracks I've mixed and I've just left the bleed in and EQ'd you know, the tom ring out of the actual track, but in this case I don't think I need to do that. There looks like one more at the end. Yeah. Okay, same thing, select all the objects, put a tiny fade in and out, job done. So these tracks here, I'll just pick one where we're all playing. I think that's all. I'll just make sure that these guys are bussed to one fader. So I'll just bus them to a bus, call it toms. And the thing you normally want to do is you want to EQ them. I know that I don't want it too much rumble, but I do want it to kick ass. I want less of the boxy in the middle. I want that gone. I do want some tops so that the transient goes pop. And I know that I want them really slammed hard, so I'll hit them hard with, you know, an L2 or L3. And I will put a reverb on them. Let's go for the straight out drum chamber on this one and see what that sounds like. Okay, for now that sounds pretty good. I think still on the actual toms, I'll put the reverb that we, you know, our normal house reverb, the chroma verb. That's going to be just on it to give it a long reverb as well. I think that's pretty cool. Remember, our overheads still have all of this action in them, so if, inside, you know, you can already hear all of those toms and everything as well. At the moment, these are nice and stereo, but they're pretty plain Jane. And, you know, these are the last two tracks that we've got. If I just play the drums now as they are, without any anything done to the overheads. Starting to kick all right. That snare's definitely going over. I want to put another limiter. Stop it from doing that. Kick is pretty solid too. Okay, so I'm not going to listen to the overheads by themselves. I'm going to listen to them with the kit, and I'm going to EQ them together right now. So I'm going to the overheads. I'm going to bus them, output to a bus, overs, and I'm going to apply the Stevens Slate or Slate Digital virtual mix rack first. Definitely this guy. I switched this one to USA on this one. Let's go to, I definitely need a compressor. I think on this one it's probably the Distressor style. So let's press play. This is just drums. And what I'm doing here is I'm changing the two mics above the kit. The rest of the stuff's the same, but the sound in the kit's going to change depending on what I do to these two mics. So, but they're really not hit very hard right now. You know, these aren't even hitting the red. So let's do that. All the bottom end off, you know, you don't need a lot, but you do want a little bit. Say 100 Hertz. Now let's roll the top back. So the very top frequency that these that the overheads are going to deliver. I want it old school, a little bit more rock and roll, AC/DC style rock and roll. So it's not very, you know, it's not up to 20K. Let's go 10. You know, there's no need to really de-ess them. They're already, you know, they're not too sibilant. You're not really going too high. So I'm going to take this compressor off for a second. So listen to the change when I switch this guy on. The pressure, the size of the drummer's arms, you know, it's a very effective. Okay, I also want to slam it hard again. And I want to add the right reverb. So let's go to Chroma Verb. Let's add some on there. And this one will have to be subtle. So I'll pull back, you know, just to drive for now. Let's go to our drum chamber and have a look, or maybe dirty chamber. Just pull everything back here. A lot of bass in there, right? And I don't have the bass even open yet, so there's lots of mics happening, and you know, the percussion is already in there as well. Let's add these guys in. Percussion. These guys are very, very important. So I'm going to group them, and I am going to bust them to their own little fader, and I'm going to push them as well. Perk, hit them real hard, limit them way back down, take the bottom end out. So, you know, a really cool EQ for this is the Vintage Collection. I think it was the console one that would, yeah, so the low cut on this console one's fantastic. Just pressing the solo button there, so even though I've soloed things up here, pressing the solo button only plays what I've selected. It sounds pretty good. Now that guy on the left, I think that he's going to need a different reverb. I'm going to put the long reverb on him. And the other guys, just going to leave them the way they are. I think that's going to pop through just fine. Adding them to the drums. Okay, we're going pretty well. Let's add the bass in. Remember, there's still a fair bit of bottom energy in there. That's probably because I haven't really low cut the overheads as much as I should. I just colored the bass quickly so I could find it later. already sounding pretty good. We've got some new elements here. This guitar direct from Jan. His little box that he's got down here is the source of this. He doesn't use amp and speakers on board. He uses a Digitech RP1000. Got a picture right here. So these aren't, these have been around for a while. They still have a USB interface and everything, but I just take a single out. You can take one to a powered wedge on stage, so he hears his sound, and DI basically direct straight out. A very, very cool unit. Always sounds really nice. Jan has played guitar with us before and is also in the Zepp Boys, and Led Zeppelin, you know, guitar is not the easiest style. This guy is a true performer, a fantastic player. I'll put all these guys' channels and that as well, so you can check them out. Now, one thing about it is, I mean, look, I know it's going to need some reverb, right? So, and look, I've got enough DSP. I'm going to get a reverb just for this channel, and it will be definitely a guitar. Let's just go to the guitar chamber and check it out. Just a little bit. Okay, now there's already something that I need to do quickly. This particular track, even without that, has different types of sounds. We have crunch, we have clean, which is going to need its own channel. I'm going to slice those suckers out. There's that crunch again. Clean. And there is a solo up here as well. Maybe I'll have these from there through to the end of the solo. Okay, back to crunch, I'd say, for the rest of the song. So let's create 3 tracks. Just press duplicate, which is the same as going other new track with duplicate settings. So I'm going to make one called crunch, one called clean, and I'm just going to throw the those 2 verses down. And another one I'm going to call it solo. The clean I'm going to put in the center. I'm going to put a chorus on it after I EQ it. That might need to be a stereo chorus. Let's put an EQ first because it's got definitely some stuff in there I want to change. There we go. Alright, it's got some high stuff. Not a fan of that. Does need some. And some delay, because delay will help it bounce around. It's in the center and I want this to be really thick and lush. I'm going to create another bus over here, call it delay, put in a nice just delay straight, stereo delay. Okay, let's switch off the tempo sync and start moving these suckers around. So let's start at, you know, 600 to 1200-ish, right? 600 to 300. It's pretty good. Not too much feedback. Sounding pretty cool. The crunch also need a bit of an EQ. I'm switching to mono here, so I'm just hearing it straight down the center. I know you're hearing one side. Bass guitar is going to take a lot of that real estate right there, so I don't want him to be kicking out the bass. I do like that white snake thickness of the guitar, I do, and I will be putting a little bit of chorus on this too, maybe just before the reverb there, just to make sure the reverb is mono to stereo. Let's flip to stereo. Just a little bit of chorus on this. And I'm going to probably need that to go hard as well. So before the reverb, I'm going to put my favorite guitar pusher, and that is the Renaissance Axe. It's going to push the mids a little when I slam it, but it'll work great. Wow. Okay, now the solo, it's probably going to have its own little, you know, if anything in this, it's probably going to have the same copy and paste EQ of these guys here from that channel, except it's going to have, of course, the delay in it, and a lot of push. Great player. Okay, so let's put these guys in, and let's hear them with the rest of the band. Crunch. Doesn't sound too bad. You know, some levels there. So let's add the Rhodesy electric piano. This one I've got a special trick for. It sounds a little bit, is that ELO? Now, because in these little bits here before the guitar goes, the only glue in the song is this sound here. Sounds a bit soft. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bust these guys to their own fader, EP, and I'm going to rock them up a little bit. I'm going to send them to another bus, just send a little bit of a signal to another bus. Over here, I'm going to put an amp sim on it. So just a Logic amp sim. Now I used to use the, it was a high octane, I think. Yes, I think that's the sort of head I was using. Go to that amp and I'll add some EQ after it as well, because it's obviously adding something to my electric piano sound. Look at that, all the way down to 80 hertz. That's so cool. It's pretty cool. We'll leave the amp reverb on and everything, adding that to the track. Adds a little bit more of a kick to it. If I would have inserted that amp, it would have had a totally different effect. The bells. Remember the 80s? Just, and these guys here, I just want them to sound a little bit more belly, so let's bust them to their own little fader. Let's call them bells. I'll just click on the straight out Logic EQ here. We don't need any bottom end. Up here. And I want them so sparkly and beautiful. Let's add some reverb of their own. Now, as you add reverb, the tone changes, so you always hit the details, go to that EQ and make the, the change back. So there's another sound on there. That's going to work great. Let's just hear that in the mixer thing. Can anyone even remember what this did sound like before? Are you still there? You're hanging in there, right? I know this has taken a while, but hey, look. Hopefully you're enjoying this. I'm getting a kick out of it. It's really working well. This is Dave Ross on the keyboards here. This sound is as well a very cool sound. It has a lovely tone, but I want it even. I'm going to bust it and I'm going to EQ it myself. Maybe it needs a little bit of that delay. You know, we were pretty well there. It's still still sounding like it needs a bit of an EQ overall and a few little tweaks, but hey, we're up to the vocals already. So the two backing vocals first. Let's just bust these two guys through to their own BV bus. Listening to them individually, I think that there's, I'm singing a unison. She's a maniac, maniac. She's a maniac, maniac. You can hear the spill. She's a maniac, maniac. She's dancing like she never danced before. Okay, so these guys are going to need some reverb and some slam, but I reckon that there's a lot in the background. I may want these mics to be live, but they are pans, remember. So, and Brad, he's playing drums, so he's going to have a lot of drum spill. Let's hear Brad at the same time. See what I mean? So, he doesn't come in until later on either. And she's dancing like she never danced before. So, it's probably better to chop them out. So, let's get rid of the mixer here. We'll start back here when we know that we're finished here. Mute. And she's dancing like she never. That looks like that's only me. Just pressing that little mute thing, so each one going backwards is a very good way to do it. You can just chop off the bit that you. Drum fill. This one looks good. Chop, chop, chop. Just chopping out the bits that I want silent here. M for mute. If the bit that, all right, this is pretty good. Now it'll just be back to me. So all of Brad's will be off from there. And this is just going to, those little flashes that you're seeing on the screen there is because I'm doing something that Logic thinks is a key command because I'm working fast here. I normally use my touch screen, but I don't want to dazzle you with the Raven yet. I will do Raven videos for you. Okay, looking good. Mute that beginning. So, select them all. A little bit of in and out, just a dink, dink, and they're all done. Okay, let's put the backing vocals in. I definitely want to slam them a bit hard, so let's just go for my straight out limiter. You can use a Logic limiter. Let's just use a Logic limiter. Limiter, hit it hard. I'm in mix mode, so. I'm adjusting my volume up, right, so that we're even. Okay. And then we're going to add EQ, our favorite. And then we're going to reverb it. Look at all that bottom end, don't need that. Like she swap over and put that limiter on at last. Okay, we've only got one to go, and that's Danny's vocal. I know that Danny's done a lot of these before, so he is right on that dynamic mic. It's a 935 wireless, a Sennheiser, I believe. Now I have a normal a vocal channel that I've used before with Sarah Lloyd, so I'm just going to open up this one. It's just a VMR. So I use the Vintage Pre. It's a preamp, so I'm basically making a sort of flat sounding dynamic mic. I'm going to put it through a virtual preamp. Nothing really much happening on the EQ except I'm pushing some bottom end, and I'm low cutting the dangerous ones afterwards, because this is just going to create a bit of a hump. Air and compression and the trimmer at the end.
Looking for the fight of a life. In the real time world, no one sees her at all. They all say she's crazy. Rocking rhythm to the beat of.
This here is a little way too aggressive.
Heart, turning motion into light. She is dancing to the danger zone, where the dancer becomes a dance. It can catch you.
Let's just add some reverb, and I'll need to EQ on top of that.
You like a knife, if I give becomes a fire. On the wire between will and what will be. She's a maniac, man.
Sounds very mono all over overall, but we'll fix that in a second.
Yeah? All good? 1, 2, 1,
2. Just a still town girl on a Saturday night, looking for the fight of her life. In the real time world, no one sees her at all. They all say she's crazy. Rocking rhythm to the beat of her. In the fight of her life.
A little flutter on the F.
Saturday night, looking for the fight of.
What's happening in this little section here? I'm going to just go to the gain of that little tiny bit. I'm going to turn it right down and see if it fixes it.
Saturday night, looking for the fight of a life. Saturday night, looking for the fight of a life. Saturday night, looking for the fight of a life. In the real time world, no one sees her at all.
I'm not going to do any gating or anything on his vocal, just leave it on.
They all say she's crazy, locking rhythm to the beat of
This is why we use dynamic mics, and there is no PA, remember. No PA, in-ear monitors for singers. Jan, he can't hear Danny's vocals, but he knows where he is. These are pro players, right? So
a heart, turning motion into light.
now if Danny was doing the wrong thing and singing from back here, like we do at a gig because there's a PA, then his microphone would be full of band, and everything that I'm doing to EQ his vocal would also change the whole mix, which is really a disaster. So no PA, in-ear monitors, wireless in-ear monitors, right? Dynamic microphones, the absolute key to doing this. There are two condensers above the kit, but they're kept, you know, they're not 10 foot high. They're kept fairly close, right? So you've got to use dynamic mics.
She has danced into the danger zone where the dance.
I think it could do with a little bit of a poke. As far as, I think that this air plugin is useless right now. I'm going to take it out and I'm going to get the Bomber, the FG Bomber. Now the Bomber is really a plugin that helps you draw focus to a specific sound. Fat, present, or tight. On this, I might even just try it on present, maybe fat.
Dancer becomes a dance. It can cut you like a knife. If I give becomes a fire on a wire between will and what will be. She's a maniac, man.
Now this is all pushing the channel over here. If I was in Pro Tools, you'd be hearing, you know, lots of digital farts. But we're in Logic, and it's a lot more forgiving. But that is dangerous. You can't really have that, so I'm going to put a limiter on that just to make sure that it's not going to freak out the channel.
Maniac on the floor.
Let's hear it mixed in.
And she's dancing like she's never danced before. She's a maniac, maniac on the floor. And she's dancing.
Got plenty of gain on him now. I don't need much more.
Dancing like she's
Probably less.
never danced before. And against the wind, she's a maniac, maniac on the floor. And she's dancing like she's never danced before. She's a maniac, maniac on the floor. And she's dancing like she's never danced before.
There's a sound that Dave's playing the keys here. I'm not sure whether I want to keep all of that. Now this is a sound that I put in, that I switched to on my Korg Chrome. I'm going to take it out because I just don't like the way it rings. I think it should be a little tighter in there. So or I could just duplicate that track, take it out of the bus. The bus that's has an amp simulator on it, remember? So it's the actual amp sound that's really killing that sound. Let's hear it. There we go. Maybe that'll be better. I think that this crunch delay still is a little bit too one-dimensional, and I don't think the actual reverb is doing the job. So I'm going to try something else, a different approach. I'm going to bus in a slap delay. Waves, super tap, set on slap Elvis, without the center. Dial it in. Reverb on that. I like that sound better.
And she's dancing like she's never danced before.
All right, so I think we're getting pretty close now. The only thing I think that is really missing is there's still a little bit more. The drums really need to crack, and I think the snare, if I was going to be sneaky here, because it's an 80s song and I want to rock the drums a little harder, I'm going to add a triggered snare. Really easy way to do that is just to duplicate the track, throw a copy of that snare down onto it. Let's go to, let's just reset the channel strip. Go to your Slate Digital or Stevens Slate Trigger 2. And let's add a snare. Now I do have some snares that I'd like to use. Let's go from the beginning. I'm just going to make sure we have an input over here. It's on input monitoring. It has to be so that I can go in the browser and audition. So let's go to snares. Four different elements of the one snare. I like that. It's not a bad idea sometimes to add a little bit of noise, but I think this guy's already got it. Let's just keep it to that. Let's go back to our triggering. In fact, I'm going to go to the actual thing and turn it up. Doesn't matter if it goes off the chart because it's just triggering this trigger thing. So okay. Let's add that to the kit, add that to the whole mix. Let's just go drums for now, right? Have a listen to those. It's no snare, just add it in so you can hear it. I want to slam it hard with a limiter after an EQ, just in case I need one. EQ. Getting it? Just on a touch. Not putting any reverb on it, so it's very, very dry. That's that extra snare that I'm adding. So I could add some, but if I did, this is what the sound would change to. BVs are going to need their own reverb. This is sounding a little bit too up close.
I sure know. And she dancing like she's never danced before. Maniac, maniac, I sure know. And she's dancing like she's never danced before. She's a maniac, maniac, I sure know.
Getting ready to bounce the sucker. Well, I think all we need now is just to do an output EQ. We haven't touched anything on this. This stuff's, we've got our air and earth and some compression. I'm going to tweak all these as I go, and let's just, without explaining everything that I'm doing here, we're getting close. Are you still there? You're still there, right? Okay.
Looking for the fight of her life. In the real-time world, no one sees her at all. They all say she's crazy. Rocking rhythm to the beat of her heart, turning motion into life. She has danced into the danger zone, where the dancer becomes a dance. It can cut.
Added some slap delay to the vocal. That definitely improved it.
Looking for the fight of her life. In the real-time world, no one sees her at all. They all say she's crazy. Rocking rhythm to the beat of her heart, turning motion into life. She has danced into the danger zone, where the dancer becomes a dance. It can cut you like a knife if I give becomes a fire. On the wire between will and what will be. She's a maniac, maniac on the floor. And she's dancing like she's never danced before. She's a maniac, maniac on the floor. And she's dancing like she's never danced before.
Just make this one just touch the red, and always be bypassing processing. I prefer 15 IPs than 30, and just leave it down on low or normal. I wouldn't run the bias on high. It's just too overstated. This is a very, very good plugin just to add that bit of something. But remember, you're going to mastering, so it's got to be subtle, but it's got to be something really worthwhile.
On the ice blue line of insanity, it's a place most never see. It's a hard-won place of a mystery. Touch it but can't hold it. You work all your life for that moment in time. If you don't, it'll pass you by. It's a push of a world, but there's always a chance if the hunger stays at night. There's a cold collective heat, struggling, stretching for my feet. Never stopping with her head against the wind. She's a maniac, maniac on the floor. And she's dancing like she's never danced before. She's a maniac, maniac on the floor.
tuning the sample closer to a harmonic that's going to work well with the snare.
On a wire between will and what will be. She's a maniac, I sure know. And she's dancing like she's never danced before. She's a maniac, I sure know. And she's dancing like she's never danced before.
I think overall we're a little bit reverby, and I'll just pull that one back before it goes off to mastering. This is a different song and has a different approach. Look, don't be scared to really push things past their limit. To, you know, on your channels. Look, even EQs, when you're using them, you'll notice that I'm really pushing upwards and down to find those bits that I don't like. Sweeping around. Generally on a channel, you really can't go past putting an EQ first, because you might want to just take off some of the rumble on the bottom before you process it. If you've got some rumble, thick, you know, doof coming from something else in the background, you don't want that to affect the compression on a vocal or something. So an EQ first, just to, you know, carve off the lumpy bits before it gets to your processor, your compressor, or limiter. I use a lot of limiting in this because it's a rock song. I want everything to sound like it's really burning a little hot. And in the end, that's going to reflect on the master. It's going to be all really hot and really loud on this particular thing. You know, this particular mix sounds a whole lot different without any plugins. So, you know, I can just do that now. And without any buses.
Saturday night, looking for the fight of her life. In the real-time world, no one sees her at all. They all say she's crazy. Rocking rhythm to the beat of her heart, turning motion.
In fact, the raw sounds a lot louder because I've brought things back down, and I've sort of, and especially the output, you know, trimmers in that virtual mix rack up here, you know, bringing these trimmers back here really make a big difference. But I'm affecting other things through here, so I always make sure I do that. So you can really see that by pushing a lot of things hard, putting them together, I mean, it's still, it needs a little bit of space. The mastering can create a little bit of that, but you know that when you slam the track again to make it mastered, your reverb is going to be amplified by another 10 or 15%. So if you love the sound of it and you don't really want it to be any wetter than that reverb style, pull your reverb channel back, you know, just before you go to mastering, because it'll come back way too wet. I think a lot of guys make a really big mistake when they go to mastering with effects. They put too much on, not realizing that it's going to come back too wet. Hip hop guys, be very careful. You know, I think reverb it's a dangerous realm to be in. I don't want to go using a whole lot of reverbs on pop. I think reverbs aren't hip in pop music, not in 2020s. It's just not. I don't think it is. I prefer dry, raw vocals without anything, and using reverbs for maybe just keyboards and, you know, maybe some backing vocals. But the main vocal to me sounds a whole lot nicer to use a beautiful microphone preamp and get a great vocal sound and just deliver it raw. If you are using a reverb and someone can hear it, I think you're doing the wrong thing. This is not, I mean, I'm obviously using reverbs in this. This is an 80s cover, right? A cover of an 80s song that was electronic, and I'm rocking it up. And of course there's an accompanying video because this was recorded live by a band rocking out, and I want to give the listener and the person watching the video the the sense of space. And of course, when you hear all those microphones when they are switched off, or, you know, without any processing, they're very, very dry and lifeless, and there is no sense of space, even though I pan things left and right. If I was just to add one more safety tip here, add a gain plugin as the last plugin on your output, flip phase, switch to mono, and press play. Now you're going to hear the ghost track, the thing that's everything that's anti-phase, that's out of phase, that gets removed when you press mono. When someone hears it from a distance or hears it on a small thing or out of your phone or something, if it better not be anything important. It's things that are panned too wide or have two microphones that aren't exactly in the right position. When you're doing the two microphones, pencil microphones, you really have to zoom in and adjust those suckers so they're right on, so that you're not going to get any anti-phase. So let's have a listen, and fingers crossed it's nothing too important. Now that's created by the reverb plugin on the snare, I'd say. That's probably why we're hearing snare in there. It certainly is. So this plugin here is creating that anti-phase. It's screwing around with my snare phase. So if someone's going to press mono, they're going to hear more of my sampled triggered snare there. So it might even be in the pre-delay. I'm going to stay in this ghost mode, and I'm going to see if I can eliminate it from this ghost track. Okay, so it's a weird experience to hear the stuff that is, eliminated in mono, but that's really the way to do it. So that's in. I'm going to flip phase. Go to mono. Please do that a lot, all right? If you do that and you find that there's something very important in that little anti-phase track, your main hook, your main vocalist or something like that, then get in there and fix it and find out why. If you hear a lot of drums, look at your two overhead mics and make sure they are lined up. Just zoom right in, find a snare hit, say, and move your little cursor to the beginning of your waveform, go down to your overheads and check out where they are. In this instance, in fact, they're a little early. I think that's probably because I've been screwing around with them. Put them on. Like she's never danced before. This blue line of insanity, it's a place most never see. It's a hard one place of a mystery. Touch it back and hold it. You work all your life for that moment in time. If you don't, it'll pass you by. It's a push of a world, but there's always a chance if the hunger's. What a part of the drums the overheads are. So hopefully you've learned something from this mix, and every time I do a mix, I learn different things. This could be mixed 100 different ways, even by me, and coming out slightly differently every time. And what you're not hearing watching this video is me flipping to mono a lot, and me going around my speakers from the little control ones to my little cubes down here, my Event 2020p version 3s, the KRK V6s. I'm really going around the Cricks, which are sort of high-end hi-fi ones. and just bouncing it around the room. I know all of these speakers, and I know if I'm getting it sounding good on each, I'm pretty good. On the output EQ, I probably would do the rounds and make sure that I don't have a little EQ mid barks and things like that. If you've got NS10s, run it through them and just make sure that you're not going lovely, 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 you know, something coming out. Get rid of that. Still sounds lovely, 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 lovely. Find another one in, get rid of that. That's really where you want to be going. Those last little tweaks will really save you when it goes to mastering, and you get that lovely works on everyone's rig sort of sound. All right, I'm going to leave you with this today, and hopefully just show some love to the players. I've got their links inside the description, and the gear that I use, and of course the Hindley Street Country Club for being such an excellent band and giving me this opportunity. So bye for now. Thanks for sticking in there. I appreciate it, and go crazy on the comments. Love to hear what you think. See you later.